If you're looking to improve ankle stability and mobility, then the first step is to understand the articulations of the ankle, meaning all four motions that the ankle produces, which is rotation or inversion and eversion of the foot, and ankle plantar flexion, pointing the foot and toes, and ankle dorsiflexion. So in this video, I'm just going to break down those articulations, and then we're going to put them all together in a smooth, controlled articular rotation, or CAR. The CAR serves as a really great blood flow warm-up, getting blood to the ankles if you are just getting out of your restrictive shoes for the day, or about to go for a run, or preparing for a lifting session or movement session. Serves as a really great rehab, getting movement back into the ankle, and as a really great assessment of how your ankle is able to move actively. So the first thing we're going to go through is plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. Plantar flexion is pointing the toes and the feet. We're basically lengthening the top of the foot and shin and tensing the bottom of the foot and the back of the leg. And then ankle dorsiflexion is pulling the toes towards your chest up in front. And we're going to be tensing the top of the foot and the shins and lengthening the back of the foot and the leg. So let's break it down one side at a time. What I want you to do is grab underneath your right leg with your right arm. What we're going to do is block the hip from rotating the thigh, and then we're also going to block the knee from rotating the shin. We want all of the movement to happen from the ankle. We're not necessarily moving our ankle with this motion. We want that ankle to stay still, the shin, the knee, the thigh, and the hip. So you're going to grab your right arm under your right leg and pull it to your chest as tight as you can. If this movement is inaccessible to you, you can also grab underneath with both hands here, or just leave this ankle on the floor, or you can also do this seated on a bench, or even standing, right? So you're gonna find the best way you can to pull that leg towards the chest and block that thigh from moving. You're then going to lift the foot off the floor if you can, and you're gonna wrap the left hand on top of the right shin. So I'm grabbing on the top of the right shin with my left hand, and I'm grabbing close to the ankle. I'm gonna wrap my right arm around my left bicep, or around above the elbow, and this is all gonna lock this leg into place. So now it's gonna make it hard for my leg and ankle to move. So dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. First, we're going to start with dorsiflexion. So you're going to pull your toes up towards your knee as far as you can. You'll feel this anterior tibialis muscle working in order to lift that foot up. As you're doing all of these movements, try to spread out the toes as much as you can as well. Then we're going to go into plantar flexion. So you're going to point through that ankle. Now you can also crunch the toes under here if you'd like. You might get a little cramp under the arch of the foot. But since we're just focusing on the ankle, you don't need to point those toes with it. You could just point the ankle. And then let's go back to ankle dorsiflexion. Pull the toes up towards the shin. Try to spread those toes out. Look at that foot and notice if there's any rotation in either direction. So notice if the big toe tries to pull up a little bit higher towards the shin, or if the pinky toe tries to. We want to try to pull that foot nice and evenly up away from the floor. And then let's go back to plantar flexion, pointing that foot towards the ground. As you point down, you're going to feel the back side of that lower leg tensing. So the calves and the back part of that ankle and heel. Then we're going to go back to ankle dorsiflexion and hold, each time trying to get a little further into that articulation. And then let's go back to plantar flexion, pointing those toes down. I'll show you straight on here and lifting up. So notice how I'm not rotating at the foot and ankle here to flex. If you are, try to come out of that movement a little bit. You might need to make that range of motion a little bit smaller until you can get that foot higher without compensating with either of those rotations. Last time, pointing the toes down towards the floor into ankle plantar flexion. All right, so let's release the right leg and try all of that on the left. So now, same arm as leg, I'm wrapping my left arm under that left thigh, pulling it towards my chest, grabbing on top of the left shin with my right hand, and then locking all of that into place. And let's start with our ankle dorsiflexion again. So you're gonna pull the toes up, Notice if there's any rotation. Try to spread out those toes. Try to feel the front of that shin working. And then ankle plantar flexion, pointing the toes and or the ankle straight down. Here's where we might get a lot of cramping underneath the arch of the foot or even in the calf. And then let's go back to ankle dorsiflexion, pulling those toes up, spreading those toes out. Hold that articulation. And then ankle plantar flexion, pointing the toes down. So notice how my ankle is not moving. My foot is moving from the ankle. That is our ankle mobility. How well does the foot move from the ankle? And then back up to ankle dorsiflexion, toes up, spreading those toes out. And ankle plantar flexion, pointing straight down. Each time trying to get a little further into that articulation. Let's do 2 more. We've got dorsiflexion. Dorsiflexion is super important for squats, running, walking, jumping, landing from jumps, and back down. So a lot of times dorsiflexion suffers because the shoes that we wear usually have a bit of a heel on them, especially women. Our shoes are normally elevated slightly. And so that prevents any extra ankle dorsiflexion, meaning your heel reaching the floor all the way as you're standing up. So at the end of a day in restrictive or heeled shoes, it's really great to work through that ankle dorsiflexion especially. Okay, so now let's slowly release that left leg and let's go into our rotation or inversion and eversion of the ankle. So grab underneath the right leg. Again, we'll have the same setup and we'll practice these in dorsiflexion. So you're gonna just hold that dorsiflexed position. And now we're going to simply take the bottom of your foot and turn it towards the inside of your body. So I'm not just moving my foot this way. You're trying to turn it in, lengthening the outside of the heel and ankle, shortening the inside. So now I do want my little toe to be lower towards the floor than my big toe. And then let's go back, or let's go into eversion, the opposite. So now I'm shortening the outside of my heel and ankle and lengthening the inside. If you're having a hard time feeling this, you can place your foot on the floor and simply roll that heel out. That's your inversion. The bottom of the foot is facing in. And then roll the heel in. And that's your eversion. The bottom of the foot is turning away from the center of your body, out. Let's do 3 more just like that. Inversion, notice how the rotation of the ankle is a smaller range of motion than the plantar flexion and the dorsiflexion. Back to eversion. And 2 more. Inversion. Again, if you're having a hard time feeling it, place the foot on the ground, or you can grab it with your hands and try to manually, back to eversion, push into those rotations. And last one, inversion and eversion. And rest. All right, so now let's switch sides. Let's go with the left. So find the progression that works best for you. Notice how one side might be a little bit easier than the other. And let's dorsiflex that foot. And then we're going to go into inversion first, turning the bottom of your foot in towards the inside of your body. And eversion, turning the bottom of your foot out. Again, try to spread the toes as you're doing these movements. Back to in. Keep that ankle nice and still. If your foot's on the floor, then you can have some side-to-side motion of that ankle. And back to eversion. And let's do 3 more. Inversion. And eversion. Back to inversion. And eversion. And one more time, inversion. So we're actively performing all of these ranges of motion. And eversion. So your ankles and calves and feet might be getting a little bit tired. We're doing a lot of active mobility work. and rest. So now let's put it all together. We're going to basically imagine your foot as a paintbrush, and we're going to paint a big circle with the toes, going through dorsiflexion, eversion, down to plantar flexion, over to inversion. Okay, so we're just combining all of these articulations and going through each range of motion. Now, this is not an ankle circle, right? I'm not just circling the foot and the ankle here. I am actively going through as deep of a range of motion as I can manage, nice and slow and smooth, okay? So let's give it a try. Same exact setup. So we've already been working this setup. Go ahead and find that strong, stable position. Let's start with that dorsiflexion. So toes pointing towards 12 o'clock. And then let's go into eversion first. So you're going to turn the bottom of the foot out away from you. Keep going around and down with those toes towards 6 o'clock or your plantar flexion. Then we're going to go back in. And we're not just turning the toes to 9 o'clock, but we're also pulling the inside of that foot in towards the body, in towards the middle of the body. And then the toes go back up to 12. Let's try 2 more just like that. So if you're going faster than I'm going, go ahead and take a breath, slow it down, and try to work through your deepest ranges of motion. So we're going through our active ranges of motion. This is the last one, biggest one yet. Eversion, down to plantar flexion, over to inversion, back up to 12 o'clock, dorsiflexion. Now let's reverse it. So we're going in first, down to 6 o'clock, out to 3 o'clock, and up. From the top, rotate that foot from the ankle into inversion, all the way down, all the way in. Now the goal of holding this leg here is not just to keep the leg and ankles nice and still, it's also to generate tension in the body. So if you can generate a little more tension through that leg and ankle, then we're going to be able to get a little deeper into these ranges of motion. So as you get more comfortable with this movement, try to add a little bit more tension to the base position and in the foot and ankle to reach into deeper ranges of motion. So let's try all of that on the left side. We'll start in that dorsiflexion again, and we'll take it to eversion first, going out towards 9 o'clock. So right from here, I want you to rotate that foot to eversion. Remember to bring that tension to the movement. If you're rehabbing, you're going to use low effort with your tension. You're going to be probably around 10%, 5 to 10% if you're in the early stages of rehab. If you're preparing the tissues for rotational movement or sports or a run, you're going to use more like 50% of your max effort tension, 50 to 60%. If you're in a recovery mobility day, you're going to use around 30 to 40%. And now let's reverse that. So now we're going to go to inversion, down to 6 o'clock, over to eversion, up to 12. 2 more just like that, nice and smooth. Back out. 1 more, biggest one yet. Try to keep this nice and smooth. Notice the areas that are kind of tricky or that your body wants to kind of skip over, and take a little more time in those areas. So you can go even a little bit slower if you're noticing a lot of clicking or cracking or tension in the ankle tissues. And that's it. All right, so I hope you learned a little something about ankle mobility today and ankle movement in general. I hope your ankles and feet are feeling really, really good, and I will see you next time.